Welcome to collecting data. So the job of a statistician looks at surveys, they collect the data, analyse and interpret. When they design the survey, they need to formulate and refine questions before they choose the people. So the statistical data comes from the responses that the people give. The information can be observation, so you're out looking at things, a survey, which is what people complete, or measurement, so you might be measuring various objects off a production line. And the responses that you can get can be of two forms. So they can be numerical, which is the data is numerical or number responses, or they can be categorical, which tends to be worded responses, but you can divide them into categories. And we're about to have a look at the different types of each of these. So numerical data can be broken up into two, discrete and continuous. So we consider discrete to have a limited number of values. So basically they're exact answers. So when you talk about the number of children in a family, you're talking about a limited number of values that it can take on, or you're going to get exact responses like one child in the family or three, or whereas in continuous is in a given range. So for example, your height is not an exact answer. So using the measuring tool that you have, which might be a tape measure, you might be able to say that you're 163 centimetres tall. But in reality, you're 163.14273, etc., etc. So it's continuous. When we look at categorical, it falls into two categories or two sections as well. We have ordinal, as in order. So therefore, it can be ordered, like true or false, or outstanding, high, satisfactory. So a bit like how your reports are seen. And then we have nominal, which has no order, such as your favourite colour, because there's no particular order. Like we tend to put them in alphabetical on there, but there's no particular order for when you're listing all the colours. When you conduct a survey, we can have either everyone asked or we can do a sample. So when we survey everyone, that's called a population, and that's everyone in your chosen group. So a census surveys every single person that is available. So we do that when we have census night for all Australians, where they work out how many Australians there are living in households, living in Australia. Or we could survey all the students at the school if that was our chosen group. So that's a population. A sample is a group chosen from the population. So when we were talking about the students at school, the sample could be year 9. And that might be a good representation of the whole population. But that's what a sample does. It's a representation of, or hopefully a true representation of what the whole population's thinking. So you don't have to survey everyone, you can survey a smaller group. When you're selecting your sample, we need to try and do it so that it's not biased. So the first three here are ways that we try not to have bias in our sample. So the first one's called systematic. So that's like choosing every 10th person or every 35th person, or in a production line, you might be producing 10,000 screws in a day and you decide to test every 100th. So that's systematic. Random, well, that's as simple as like names in a hat, or even a random number generator when they make phone calls to people. It's random. You don't know who's going to be chosen. And then they're stratified. This is the more difficult of the three to understand. That's when your population is divided into smaller groups known as strata, hence the word stratified, and the ratios are tried to keep the same. So if there's twice as many males in a population as females, then if I do a sample, I want to have twice as many males compared to females in that sample to try and keep a true representation of what the population is. The final one can have some bias, but that's where you have self-selected. So people volunteer to be a part of it. So generally you get people who are actually interested in the topic, and of course you can see that that can lend itself to some bias. Finally, we have what's known as primary sources and secondary sources, and you would see this in other subjects. So a primary source is the first-hand account, and a secondary source is information gathered from primary sources. Thank you.